Today's webinar, Unlock Growth with 80/20, is not an introduction to 80/20 as a business methodology. So you don't have to know anything about 80/20 to extract value from this presentation, but if you'd like more information on the foundation of 80/20, we have a lot of content on the subject, so just contact us afterwards. Our speaker today is Jenn Desrosiers. Jenn is a senior consultant and 80/20 authority who comes to Strategex after decades of business leadership at Illinois Toolworks. But don't let her chemical engineering degree from Georgia Tech fool you. While she has led engineering teams in manufacturing facilities, her true passion is commercial leadership and growth. And that is what she will be discussing with us today. Jenn, over to you. And thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Maggie. I appreciate the introduction. I can't tell you how excited I am for each of you to join me in talking about this topic today. Before we dive in, I do just have to laugh a little. In that introduction Maggie gave, very generous. You'll have heard the term 80/20 maybe said 7 times, and she called me an 80/20 authority. And it always makes me think, have you seen the movie Taken? I'm not sure if you've seen the movie Taken with Liam Neeson, but if you haven't, the plot is he's a black ops former government agent whose daughter's kidnapped. And early in the movie, he's on the phone with his daughter's kidnappers. And he's saying, listen, if you want ransom, I don't have any money. If you want something else, I don't have that either. But what I do have are a very particular set of skills, skills that I've acquired over a long career. And it just makes me laugh because I feel like when Strategex, my colleagues get introduced, we kind of sound like that Liam Neeson character, because all of us do share a similar background, that decades of experience in an 80/20 mindset. So that's without further ado, before I keep saying the word 80/20 and you all are sitting, some of you may be thinking, I'm not sure I know what that is. You may have also heard it referred to as the Pareto principle. And it's just the relationship between a small number of inputs tend to make up a disproportionate amount of the results. So the way this applies to your business is typically 20% or fewer of all the customers or clients you sell to make up 80% or greater of your revenue. The same is true for the products or services that you're actually selling. A small number of every iteration of product or service you offer, typically 20%, make up 80% of the revenue. So if you believe this and convince yourself through data and experience that this is true, it will have dramatic implications on the way that you not only prioritize your and your team's professional time, but also the way you prioritize your personal time. Because all of us are 80/20 authorities in both of our professional life and personal life, all of those of us who work at Strategex at least. So I'm going to give you several examples today. Some of these are just my favorite. Some of them are very recent and timely that I want to share with you about how our clients and how 80/20 has led businesses through maniacal focus on those few things that matter to explosive results. And what the big punchline of today is, you can do far fewer things with far fewer people and result in fanatic customers, empowered, engaged employees and teams, and explosive cash flow growth in your business. If you don't believe the words I'm saying, I'll just share with you the high-level financial results of one client I worked with last year. Couple billion-dollar client, through focus on the very few opportunities they had, grew top line 15%. At a 45% flow through to profit. They incrementally added $130 million of income to what they had budgeted for the year through use of 80/20. They did fewer things that were more impactful, that mattered more, and they had explosive results. This wasn't a market condition where rising tides raise all ships. They vastly outperformed their peers and got a disproportionate growth in their market share. So the examples that I chose to share with you today, I wanted to highlight the economic challenges we had last year and that are pursuing in our businesses today. And then I want to say, before we jump in, that if you feel like these examples don't resonate exactly with your business model, your sector, your go-to-market strategy, your internal construct, I promise 80/20 still applies to you. So ask the question if you're not connecting the dots. Okay, she's given a few examples with this size company or this go-to-market. Well, how does that apply to my specific sector? There'll be Q&A, and I want to hear from you, and I want to help connect those dots. I'm gonna jump in. I'm gonna be on and off screen. I have some slides with some visual backup that I'll need to show you, and we're gonna start with, I promise I'm not going to bore you, 3 slides to cover some common terminology to level set us on in a data-driven way where your growth is going to come from. Then I'm going to talk about examples of how you achieve that growth. Okay. Every engagement that I begin, every business I've ever worked for, I have to start with your data. We need to align on where you are making money today. As Maggie said, this isn't a course on 80/20 in that I'm not going to teach you how to do data analysis. We have webinars on that. If you want to check them out, visit our website. But I want to set high-level terminology. One of the data pieces we ask for is a complete transactional ledger of all of your sales, all of your customers, all of the products and services you sold over a given period of time. And we construct something we call a quadrant. The way we make this is we take your customers on the y-axis here, and we list them in descending order, starting, so highest revenue customer that you sold to over the period we're looking at, all the way down to the smallest. We draw a line where we think there's a really critical break point in your data, and that's where you reach 80% of your revenue. So the 20% of customers that made up 80% of your revenue, we call those A customers. You're going to hear me say that throughout the next 45 minutes. The very, very, very long tail of small customers that you sold to, but they contributed only small amounts of revenue to your business, we call these B customers. The products are assigned the same way. On the x-axis, we have your highest product, and then in descending order all the way to your smallest product or service. And A products and B products, again, the 80% and 20%. So we have a lot of insights that come out of constructing your data in this way. We have strategies that we apply to optimizing each of these quads. Today, what we're going to talk about is quad 1 and how to grow it. So mathematically, I want us to level set on why all the focus on quad 1. It's just math. It's very simple. 80 times 80 is 64. 8 times 8 is 64. And in your business today, I would bet you that your quad 1 is about 64% of your revenue. This is a small number of your customers buying a small number of your products are making up 64% of the total value of your company. Quads 2 and 3, the way the math works out, 80 times 20, 16, and again, 80 times 20, 16. Then we have quad 4. Quad 4 is made up of the very, very long tail of customers and their purchases of your long tail of products or services. This tends to be 4% of your revenue. It's just math. It's the way it works out. But this is the kind of provocative part. For a company that hasn't applied 80/20 logic yet to the way you operate your business, you spend equal amounts of overhead in each quad. So you spend 25% of all of your time, energy, effort, resources, capital investments, all of your overhead, 25% in each quad. So what the math tells us is if I make 64% of my revenue here and I only am spending 25% of my overhead, I actually make more than 100% of my company's entire profit in quad 1. And then I systematically give it back and decrease my overall profitability by choosing to transact in quads 2, 3, and 4. So we call this the fort because, like I said, you are making more than 100% of your total income in quad 1. You need to protect it. You need to have strategies to delight those customers and ensure they only buy from you. We call it the fort because, to carry out the metaphor, dig a moat around it, put alligators in it, a drawbridge that only allows customers in and not out. So we've got to protect the base, but I want to talk today about how we focus growth efforts on just growing the size of our fort. We have strategies for 2 and 3 quads. We're not going to talk about them today, but we have names, necessary evil. You gotta offer some small products and services to your big customers because they expect them. And then quad 4, in the same vein, if 64% of your revenue only takes 25% of your overhead, you're making all your profit. But if you are using 25% of your overhead to achieve only 4% of your revenue, you can't realize a profit. So that's where the acronym comes from. It's the crap in our business. It takes a lot of time and energy and effort, and it's detrimental to our bottom line. I'm asking you to take a leap of faith and trust me on that data. We can run it for you. Your business will reflect something very similar. But a common objection I get is, there's no way, Jen, I don't spend 25% of my overhead in quad 4 with all this activity. If I have a direct sales team, my client might say, none of my sellers work or talk to even know the small tail of customers that are in quad 4. And to that I say, sure, okay, that's good. Sales resources are one portion of your overhead. And we like to draw then the quads in a relative size in 2 ways. On the left, you'll see this is the quad with each box drawn proportionate to the amount of revenue it brings to your company. And on the right, this is each box drawn and proportionate to the amount of complexity or transactions that occur in your company. And what I want you to take away here is, this is a client, this is the most recent client whose data I did, so I dropped it in. Their quad 1 is $370 million. Relative to their quad 4 in revenue, their quad 4 is $31 million. It's a 12th the size. But look at how many transactions or customers and products that they had to transact with to get to that small amount of revenue. So the takeaway here is, it takes 13 times the number of customers, nearly 10 times the number of products, and you're only contributing a 12th of the revenue as compared to quad 1. This is where people get hung up. They see this and they go, great, I get it. I can be an 80-20 company. All I have to do is eliminate quad 4. And I will tell you, your company will get some great financial results if you eliminate quad 4. It's going to free up all that 25% of overhead we talked about, and you can drop that to the bottom line. There's an income pickup. You can also roll out some price. We can get a lot of income in one short period by attacking quad 4. But the real return on investment, and the companies that truly do 80-20 understand this is step 1. Right sizing my portfolio to the right kind of customers, that's step 1. Then it's about aligning all of my resources, effort, energy on growing quad 1. And that's when you're really hitting stride with 80-20 philosophy. In the first 12 months, on average, my clients grow 27%. First 12 months of engagement with us, we grow about 27% in their quad 1 through this focus. So let's get into it. How do I grow? I understand quad 1 now. I understand I have a few customers and a few products or services that make up a lot of my revenue. How do you recommend we grow? I have to give the asterisk. This is my last data slide. I do have to give the caveat that you do have to earn the right to grow. And this isn't just business corporate jargon we hear thrown around, Jim Collins, right people in the right seats on the bus. All that's important. But earning the right to grow is actually a numeric number that you have in your business, a cost of capital. And if your operating profit or operating income or EBITDA is below that cost of capital, if you choose to grow the top line of your business, you're actually going to damage your financial performance. So it is prudent and our fiduciary responsibility to advise our clients that we need to figure out your cost of capital. This is what I would say typical for a manufacturing client. You have to get to a certain percent, and then let's focus all of our incremental overhead effort on growing top line. But let's get there first. So that's the last caveat. And now I want to introduce the 3 growth strategies I apply for organic growth of our quad 1 business. Strategy 1, 1, 2, and 3 are intended to be in a phased approach, and 1 is inherently least risky and easiest. So you have your quad one business, you have big customers that buy some products and services from you today. How do you get an unfair share of their spend in all of your categories and products and services that you offer? So easiest way to grow is I have a big customer today. They buy some products of mine, but they don't buy all my big products. How do I sell them the other big products? Lever 2 or growth strategy 2 is, again, I have products and services that are very large for me, that I'm very efficient at. I have a compelling value proposition. My existing customers love them, but there are some big targets out there that my competitor has, or that I just don't, someone has, I don't have them. How do I go win them? And again, this is a meaningful size opportunity for you, something that would be in your quad one, whatever size that is for you, but you don't have them today at all. A little more risky because we don't have relationships there. We don't have an existing business dynamic. Takes a little bit longer, but a very effective way to grow organically. The third way, and your data has to compel you to enter this phase, but it would be adjacencies, new markets, new categories, new products. How do I do that in a meaningful, data-driven way and choose smart targets and places to place my bets? I don't want to go on a tangent, but I have seen more clients fail through trying to employ a blue ocean strategy than I have succeed. So if your market share and wallet share of your large customers is such that we want to pursue an adjacency, we need to do that in a meaningful way. And so I'll talk about examples in each of those areas. Okay, growth strategy 1, maximize quad 1. I'll give you the punchline of this story. I'm working with a client still. We've been working with them for a while. They identified what was at the time, 2019, about a $5 million client of theirs. That was their quad 1. 5 million is meaningful to them. And through maniacal focus over 24 months, they've achieved growth of that client to $200 million with line of sight over the next 12 to 18 months for that to be $1 billion business for them. So, I'm going to talk to you about how we did that and how they have done it, but it's spoiler alert, it's through maniacal focus. So I can maintain anonymity of my client, but not confuse you as I tell a story with all these conflicting pronouns. I'm going to make up names for the companies I'm talking about. So my client, in this case, they sell and they manufacture large capital equipment and infrastructure that's installed in big buildings. Let's call them the capital company. And like I mentioned, 2019, 2020, they were looking through their roster and said, hey, they recognize the name of a very large tech company that bought about $5 million from them. That said, that tech company has a much bigger footprint than makes sense for the capital company to only get $5 million of spend with the tech company. The tech company also had publicly come out and spoken about aggressive footprint expansion plans they had over the next several years. And my client said, I want us to win 100% or a very disproportionate amount of their footprint expansion plans. How are we going to do this? Well, you do it through dedication and focus. You identify the opportunity in a data-driven way, and then we set up a team of people to just do that. So it wasn't what so many of us do is, hey, Jen, in addition to the other large customers you support and maintain relationships today for our firm, go win this tech target. It just doesn't work, because what I will inherently do if you tell me do your base and try to go do some incremental work, I will prioritize covering my base of existing customers where I have orders, where I make commission, where it keeps our company's lights on. And I never dedicate the time or attention and focus to the customer that can dramatically and materially change the entire course of our business size. So we didn't do that. We said, you got to assign a team. So they picked a very savvy engineer, a top seller. They put together this Tiger team commercially and said, all you're going to do is wake up, eat, sleep, breathe, dream, think about the tech company, and I want you to win it. And so through the course of doing that over the year of 2020, they realized, well, the capital company realized their existing core product that they sell is good, but the tech company was changing the nature of the building requirements and needs for future iterations. And so our product's value proposition, the capital company's product, wasn't going to quite meet the new quality standards. And it made it really clear that we would need to invest in a different manufacturing location to hold those people and that team to a different quality standard than our core products and businesses that are very good today, but have a different standard. So 2021 was the year of, let's get our manufacturing separate, let's get dedicated teams, let's focus just an entire business built around the tech company. Well, I don't have to tell you all as professional, and you experienced in your professional life and business leaders, there was unprecedented supply chain challenges last year. We couldn't get the materials that we needed in the time that we needed them. And when we did get them, the inflation was pretty high on them. Our costs had gone up dramatically. So my client, the capital company, was in this kind of delicate balance. I'm trying to grow with this huge opportunity with the tech company, and I have this existing book of business with orders and backlog that I also need to fulfill. And this is where you have to make the tough call, and you're going to have to be brave. And my client had to be extremely brave. And ultimately what they said is, I can disappoint everyone, or I can ensure I'm perfect with one thing. So we launched a strategy 1 to perfect. We said, at all cost, we are going to ensure that we deliver to the tech company on time, in full, everything they need to keep their projects on track. Because like I mentioned, these are large buildings being constructed. There are very big financial implications if my client, the capital company, doesn't deliver their product in the time when the building needs it for installation. So there's all kinds of information, so permitting, there's cranes that maybe you're getting surcharged for with the equipment not needed. Big cost if we don't deliver on time. That was tough. We had to call customers that had been with us a long time, big and meaningful customers, and say, hey, your project's going to be delayed 6 weeks. And but this is ultimately what it wound up doing for the client. Well, we prioritized it. We ensured the entire year this tech company's product was delivered on time. And at the end of the year, unsurprisingly, my client was a little, not upside down, but backwards from where they wanted to be in profit because of all the inflation and cost increases they had experienced. So they went to this tech company and they said, listen, we know the value, quantifiable in dollars and cents, that we saved you and protected you from delivering on time when no one else could do it. No one else in the marketplace was able to do what my client did. And here's what happened to us on the cost side. Can we talk about meeting in the middle on this? They negotiated, they had the relationships to do it. And ultimately the tech company wrote a check back to my client, the capital company, for tens of millions of dollars to bridge that gap. And that's what true partnership does, because both businesses understand the value that they are to the other one. Fast forward, what are we doing now? They're going to throw up some more great growth this year, probably another 50 million of top line. But now we have not only a top to top, executive to executive relationship, but through rank and file, every point of contact that's a buying decision maker or influencer in the equipment that the capital company sells to the tech company, there's relationships. And it's all about this year footprint expansion and scalability so that we can deliver on what we have agreed with the tech company in the next 12 to 18 to 24 months to deliver for them. And it's going to be about $1 billion over that time frame. So a pretty dramatic example of what focus on one huge big opportunity can do for your company. You have to select the right target. You have to do it in a data-driven manner. We did that. We started with, who are your big customers today? How could we grow more with them? We developed a customer acquisition strategy document. We do this with our clients. We bring a lot of rigor to the way we pursue it. The most important thing then is to dedicate the team to it and make it a winning team. And this team, this is a fun culture now, right? Because I truly believe that all of us want to work on a winning team. We want to work on meaningful, needle moving opportunities for our business and the world. And that is what this was. I would rather work on a team, and this is what we told our client, and this is what they did, with fewer, better paid people focused on one opportunity or two large ones, whatever it is, than many average paid people. And so it's a great culture, a fun culture they have. They're absolutely competitive, and they're winning in the assignment that they were given. Got to tell you, as employers, you do have to align compensation to drive this behavior. Again, this was the one thing that they were measured on and compensated on. And we didn't put team members on the team that said, well, what happens if we fail? What happens if we don't win the business? Those aren't the people you want on this team. You want the people that are going to do what it takes to win the business. Okay, that's example of growth strategy 1. What about growth strategy 2? I'll come off here and just talk to you because you don't need to look at the Airbus and Boeing logos for 5 minutes. This is my story. This is a business that I worked directly for. It wasn't a client. And this is an example of absolutely how not to do the second growth strategy. The second growth strategy, remember, is I have products and services today that have a compelling value in the market. They have large customers, but I want to win a new large customer I don't have. So this business that I was the commercial leader for, we made this specialty adhesive product that was used in the manufacturing of original equipment for aircraft. So if you want to win and get an unfair share of the aviation market, aviation manufacturing market, there's 2 big players. You want Boeing and you want Airbus. And we had the Boeing business. And the aviation industry is hard to penetrate. I think all of us who have gotten on a plane appreciate that. It's very heavily regulated, not just in the execution of how the plane travels around the country or internationally, but it starts way, way upstream with how it's manufactured. It takes a long time to go through the development cycle and the product roadmap and to get qualified and specified for your product to be used to help manufacture an aircraft, especially when you're talking about an adhesive that becomes part of the aircraft. So we had the Boeing business. We were doing great there. And we had done the hard work and heavy lifting of work with the engineers back and forth to get approved for Airbus. So we were specified, we were on the qualified products list, we were approved to be used in that application, but we couldn't win the business. And I was responsible for the commercial team. What I heard from, I did have a team of dedicated sellers focused just on aviation. And I had a product manager for this product. And I kept hearing for 12 months, Jen, we're just priced out of the market. We can't compete with that competitor with Airbus because they sell so much less than that. They sell it at such a less price point than we're willing to sell. So this goes on. They keep working other aviation targets and accounts. And through chance, I get the opportunity to acquire my competitor. So we fly down to Texas for due diligence. And in due diligence, I mean, this is real transactional data, not anecdotal. It's, that you do during acquisitions. I get a copy of an invoice for what my competitor sold their product to Airbus at. And wouldn't you know, it was 25% higher than we sold to Boeing. So I'm sure you're thinking, wow, she must have a tough sales team. I am sure it's just my sellers and marketers that blame everything on price, and you've never experienced that. But if you have experienced it, through focus, you can change the conversation that price is the only value driver or the only reason you're winning or losing business. If you are truly winning or losing on price, you probably don't need a high valued salesperson on the team. You can probably take that salary and reduce the price, and then you can grow your market share. I say that jokingly, but honestly, what would have been more successful? I got the Airbus business. I got it through acquisition. That's a much more expensive way to win a target and grow. If I had taken the aviation team and if I had taken the top aviation seller, Emily, and been like, Emily, I don't want you to work on any of these other small targets you're working on today. All I want you to do, you and the product manager for this product, is go win Airbus. Emily was my best. She wasn't going to come to me in 6 months and say, you only gave me one thing to do and I failed at it. If she woke up and every day that's all she thought about was how do I win Airbus, she would have gotten us a lot closer. And this is what we figured out. After the acquisition, we go on, so we know it's not price because they're selling to Airbus for more than we're selling to Boeing. We develop that intimate relationship with them. And we learn that in their manufacturing process downstream, there's an area where the engine's installed that it's a very tight ergonomic challenge to put our product on that portion. And the competitor offered an adapter nozzle that made it safer, easier, a ton of compelling reasons why we were a non-starter for Airbus to even consider, because our product didn't meet their basic assembly and manufacturing needs. We would have learned that if we had dedicated someone that their whole job was to go win this account. We didn't, but you know what did happen over the course of those 12 months? We won Lear and Cessna and a long tail of in the aviation industry, they call them MROs, maintenance, repair, overhaul, the people who do the scheduled maintenance review of the aircraft. Some for large scale, maybe commercial airlines, but a lot of really small private jet people that during part of maintenance of the aircraft have to use a very, very small amount of our product. For us, a non-needle moving amount of our product. If instead of winning all those small accounts, which as a sum didn't even touch what Airbus meant to us, we had just focused on winning Airbus, it would have made not only a much bigger financial impact on our business, but a more fulfilling and rewarding focus for our employees. Because how disappointing is it that you spend all this time, energy, effort, you're calling on tons of airline hangars, you're flying all over the States and internationally, and it's all adding up to nothing except a whole bunch of time spent on work of immaterial things that don't matter to your business. That's discouraging to your teams. So that's the story of how not to do growth strategy 2. Here's a story of how you can do growth strategy 2. I have a client that I'm working with currently. They manufacture critical metal components that are used in extreme temperature, pressure, and corrosive applications. So harsh environments, small metal componentry. They have a very bright team. They have engineers, they have metallurgists that understand the right alloys to combine to engineer this product just for this extreme condition. And they are very profitable because of the nature of their business, they are extremely profitable. But they haven't grown at all for 5 years. They're part of a big corporate conglomerate. That conglomerate brought on a new president. She had worked with us before, and she called us in, Strategex, and said, I want you to help me think about growth differently. We are profitable. We don't need to increase our profit level. I need to grow the top line so I can leverage and flow through more. So we start looking at their data. Of course, we like growth strategy 1 first, but what we found is, they have these 2 predominant markets they were selling their components to. And one of them, they really had close to 100% wallet share. It takes me a long time to believe that when clients tell me that. But in this case, we went through the rigor of the data to evaluate it. And there wasn't a lot of growth opportunity there. They were the standard. They had all the big players. The second sector, it was in energy sector, petroleum, petrochemical. They had a good amount of share. However, it's an obsoleting technology. It is becoming irrelevant and kind of dwindling. So we set that portion of their business up as its own P&L, its own segment, and we resourced it appropriately as a milk and hold. This freed up overhead then that we said, where are we going to invest in growth? Because we weren't trying to take overhead out. We're trying to grow part of this business. And they said, well, we know aerospace is a huge market potential for us. But again, just like the example I just told you about aviation with my adhesive company, aerospace is very hard to penetrate. There's tons of co-development, tons of stability testing, lots of regulatory hoops. But the real challenge is most of the big players in aerospace have a product roadmap with a regular cadence of review. And it just so happened that the big incumbents that were very bureaucratic and process driven were saying, well, we don't even want to talk to you, to my client, this metal component supplier. We don't even want to talk to you for 36 months because we just reviewed that category. So we had to think differently. And we developed this scoring rubric to again, force a data-driven decision for where we would target. And there was a new player in the aerospace industry, large capital backing, aggressive growth and expansion opportunities. And while they are compliant with federal regulations, they didn't have the bureaucracy and red tape of evaluating new suppliers and innovating with them. So we assigned a very small team in this case, much smaller than the tech company example I gave you, but appropriately sized for the opportunity. Small team assigned, and we said, again, this is all you do. You know where every buying decision influencer lives. You know what nights of the week their daughter does ballet and their son's in little league, and when they pull up at the gas station, you're like, hey, can I pump your gas for you? I'm teasing. Obviously, we don't advocate stalking, but your whole job is to get to know their needs and their business better than they do. So it's been 2 years now. It's already several $1 million top line, and they're still in co-development. It's profitable already, and there were 2 people working on this. And so it's dropping a lot of profit dollars through at $7 million or at a few $1 million today. And as that they go into production over the next 12 to 18 months, this will become a standalone business for my client. So same profitability, very high, leveraging the existing know-how of the metallurgists and engineers and manufacturing capabilities, but now through assignment of a really, really smart engineer and a really, really smart hardworking seller, they are going to grow an entire segment that will stand up on its own. And that, the real lesson I want you to take away from that is what this can do for talent in your team. Last year, in addition to the economic challenges we had with supply chain and inflation, a lot of us experienced a talent drain, either resignation or retention issues or recruiting issues. And that's been across the board with all my clients. Sometimes we hear, I'm a smaller few, $100 million, $300 million, whatever I am business. And people we want talent. We want to retain them. They want to grow with us, but they see this career progression up a ladder and they say, well, there's only 4 of that type of role, and those people are going to be in it for a while. So I'm going to leave to get the growth I want and need. And if you, and through focus on growing incremental, new, very large pieces of business to your company, you can develop a whole new business with a whole new team. And ITW was extremely successful growing this way. And of all the hundreds of thousands of products that ITW manufactures and brings to market, the best and most fulfilling was the product of a general manager. They made a ton of general managers. They have so many people early in career that were hungry, motivated. They were given an opportunity to win a piece of business, to grow it into $20 million, $30 million, easy for me to say, and then run a P&L. And that's very rewarding. So you gotta think about how this can motivate and drive talent and development in your organization as well. Let me go back. I'm gonna, again, with growth strategy 2, how you choose the target matters. It needs to be a data-driven methodology. I think in the Airbus Boeing example, it was probably straightforward. Who are the major aircraft manufacturers? How do I win the 2 big ones? In the case of that I just explained with my client and this aerospace target, there was a rubric developed for a data-driven way. Another thing we like to do with clients is, you have a most hated competitor. Who are their top 5 customers that you don't have that they have? Let's go win one of those. So choose the target, data-driven way, focus the team, and see how that translates into more satisfied employees and teams. Last growth strategy I want to talk to you about today is adjacencies, how we pursue those. This is a fun example. I am working with the client still. We kicked off with them in Q1 of last year. And as I mentioned, all of our engagements start with a ton of data, not just financial data though. we do ask for your P&Ls, your balance sheets, that transactional data so we can make a quad. But I ask for culture input, any feedback you have through employee surveys. We actually do interviews. We want to understand cultural challenges and opportunities in your business. And so we started with this company last year. They had just completed in Q1 an employee engagement survey. This company, the PDE stands for Product Development Engineer, but this company has 24 product development engineers. And 22 of 24 in their Q1 survey said the workload's too high. We need more resources. They were at a huge risk of burnout with what is a very critical position for this company's ongoing success and iteration of their portfolio. We went through our training. As Maggie mentioned, today isn't an introduction to the way we do 80/20. Today is an introduction to the way we do growth. But after we get the data, we launch a training with our clients, and it's like 12 hours. And we still call that an introductory training. It's a lot of fun. We have fun, but we want your team to leave believing I can do fewer things and make a more meaningful impact overall. And so we did that training. It's fun. And then the manager of this team, really smart person, he said, you know what if I made a quad out of our new product development pipeline? I heard my team, and I believe in 80/20, and I bet we have a ton of activity going on in our new product development efforts that at the end of the day aren't going to move the needle for my business. And he was absolutely right. He found that in their pipeline, it was worth about almost $270 million of opportunity. They had it took 1,000 projects to get to that size. And the crazy part was a third of them, 37% of those 1,000 opportunities were actually going to show up in quad 4. And if you believe me and you remember the math that we talked about early on, that is decretive to your financial performance. You have people that are burnt out, exhausted, and working on things that are actually going to make your P&L worse at the end of the day. And that to me is a tragedy, because I do believe we want to be part of a winning team, and we know when we do meaningful work and when we don't do meaningful work. And they know they're working long days on things that aren't going to move the needle. So average number of projects per engineer was 40 in Q1 when we kicked off. Talk about being brave. My client said, we're going to stop that right now. And in 1 quarter, in 90 days, they overhauled the pipeline of projects and they cut quad 4. We are not going to work on projects that are going to bring quad 4 business to our business. And what they found was they retained 92% of their total pipeline value. So a lot of revenue still there and potential, but cut the number of projects they had to work on in half, which cut the average per engineer in half. You do have to be wary of averages. They didn't say, okay, every engineer gets 19, because what they know and what 80/20 tells us and what their data told them was there were a few projects up in this upper left corner of quad 1 that were worth, 30% of this total pipeline. Actually, I do know the number, but they were worth a disproportionate amount of so those, they said, I want my very best engineer focused only on that, and it will accelerate my time to market and accelerate the financial results of that. And so wouldn't you know it, one of the products, this company makes all kinds of components that go into different products, but one of them was a component that was critical for the COVID test kits. So my client had a baseline of business in diagnostic test componentry, and this went into the COVID test kits. So obviously a very large opportunity, but a huge sort of social, public, making the world safer opportunity for the team to feel like they contributed to. And they really, through dedication and focus, they won that. They quickly developed something that worked in the kit and were able to scale from a manufacturing perspective to deliver that to the market. I think all of us are grateful for that, who experienced illness or fear or needed testing last year, and it was available to us. So you have your top talent working on a meaningful opportunity that, oh, by the way, had a huge financial impact for my client in a much accelerated time frame. So cut to the chase here, just to round out the feedback. after that 90-day period where they cut their pipeline in half from number of projects, they did another survey, and only 2 of their 24 engineers said, you know, I'm still at risk of burnout. My workload's too high. So in 90 days had a dramatic effect on the morale and the work content that their team was focused around. So I encourage you to think about this as you do choose to pursue new products or new markets. Are they meaningful enough? Or do you have a lot of activity surrounded around things that even if you win it, it doesn't help you. It may even hurt you. Those were my 3 examples. As far as where you go from here, and then I wanted to reserve some time for question and answer. Start with your data. Every business has a different 80-20 line. If it's $100,000, great. If it's 5 million, great. Know what is a meaningful opportunity for your company, your firm, and then ask yourself, if I were to redesign around only the things that truly moved the needle, what would that look like? I encourage you to be brave on paper. So ask yourself, if my team was only focused on defending and supporting Quad 1, and I wanted to grow with these huge Quad 1 opportunities, what could I do? We say be brave on paper because it's not permanent. If you don't like it, be creative, brainstorm, get a small cross-functional team of your leadership team together to talk about this. If you don't like it, ball it up and throw it in the trash. It's fine, but try it. It's a worthwhile exercise. If you don't want to completely overhaul your whole org design because it's just too big a leap of faith, try one. Carve it out, see what it looks like, and assign the team. But do assign the team, and do make sure you've put your top talent on your top opportunities. It's more rewarding for them, and you have a much higher chance of success. And then you have to align. You have to be consistent. You have to let everyone know, here are the few things that truly matter in our business. We have to be perfect. If we can only be perfect at one, here's the one. Focus always on fulfilling these. These are our top few goals. And you will wind up with, like I promised in the beginning, fanatic customers, empowered, engaged employees, and explosive cash flow growth. All of that, plus you get back the gift of time. And that's time not for you to expect your employees to spend more time at work. That is time for them to then turn to other areas of their life that are 80s and spend time investing there. If that's a spouse, a pet, a hobby, a friend, a family member, a child, that there are other areas than professional success and fulfillment that we need to invest in that are 80s in our lives. So that is everything I prepared today. I wanted to leave some time for questions. I hope, I hope that some of this has been provocative for you. And even if you don't see it relating to your business model, ask the question of how you think it could.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you. Very powerful stuff. And now we're already getting some questions in. So as a reminder, if you have any questions, please send them in via the Q&A feature at the bottom of your Zoom application. Before we get started, I thought I would take a moment to recommend following Strategex on LinkedIn or Twitter to stay up to date on our thought leadership and webinars. Our next webinar will be with the Manufacturers Alliance on May 5th. It's entitled Manufacturing Leaders Using 80-20 to Achieve Growth, a live panel, and is set to feature some major manufacturing leaders. And now to the question and answer portion of our show. I am joined by Jackie Pergandy to help facilitate. So welcome, Jackie. And again, thank you, Jen. Great content.
Okay, Jen, we have a couple of questions here. The first one being, it seems too simple. Our business may have 5 worthwhile targets. What will the rest of my team do?
That's a great question. The background there, I'm going to answer it in 2 ways. You may be asking yourself that because you may be thinking, all right, I have an entire org design today with a certain number of resources, a certain number of sellers, marketing people, my whole business. And if I said, if I let the data speak for me and say I have 5 targets, which is the example in this question, you might say, what are all the other sellers going to do? Because that's only going to take 1/3 of the resources I have today. And so to that, I say, you're right. That's a great question. And so instead of trying to design the pipeline of activity around the number of resources you have, first use the data to say, what activity is worth pursuing? Then layer in, how many resources do I need? So it's a flip from an inside out thought process to an outside in thought process, you know. So that's how I would answer that. The other thing is, it does take an incredible leap of faith. You know, the first month or so is very uncomfortable when you clear the pipeline of all this activity and you say, all right, I'm waking up every day and all I'm doing is winning Airbus, or I'm waking up every day and all I'm doing is winning this aerospace target. It seems uncomfortable, but you find that winning that one target will be a full-time job. So 5 may seem like not a lot to you, but when you have the full cross-functional team, you'll be surprised at how quickly you could win that. And it's a full workload. I might make a plug for the book, The One Thing. I don't know if you've read it, but it's a good book. I recommend it. It's a Wall Street Journal bestseller. And one of the lines is about multitasking. Multitasking is merely the opportunity to screw up more than one thing at a time. I completely believe that. So I encourage you to pick your 5 targets and take the leap of faith.
The next question we got is there a risk of putting all my eggs into one basket? If I only have one big customer and they go bust, what then?
That's a very good question. I will say, kind of tongue in cheek, the data tells you you already have all your eggs in a few baskets. It might not just be one, but it might be a few, and they are a disproportionate amount of your revenue and profit. The trick there is ensure that you retain them, put your arms around them, be partners in this entire step. The example of the capital company and the tech company, this capital company is now going to be a standalone business that completely operates just for this one customer. So it kind of epitomizes what you're saying, all your eggs in one basket. You have to be experts in knowing everything they need. What it does from you, if you're the parent company, just point blank, if you wind up losing that business, at least you know all the overhead associated with it, because it is a standalone business. And so we either need to go win the second tech company, or we understand what overhead has to leave the business. That's a dramatic example, but it does happen. And yeah, so yeah, there are a few meaningful targets that wind up being all your eggs in a few baskets, but you protect those, you're experts at them, and you understand how you respect each of those respectively and what overhead you have associated with them.
Has Strategex had success applying these methods to service industries?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a client right now who has an equipment arm, but also a service arm. And so that might not be the full scope of the question of what type of service industry, but yes, there is an 80-20 to the type of service that is most profitable for my client. We have, they have the opportunity to service the equipment that their other sister company manufactures, but then also third parties that compete in the space. And what you do there is you say, okay, all of this data with the types of service we sell, how am I going to segment it? You can do it from, if it was the capital equipment company, you could say, how do I do it from the building it's installed in, the length or the age of the infrastructure. You can do a needs-based segmentation. You can do a geographical segmentation on service. Sometimes that makes a lot of sense. You can do, so you segment it and you say, okay, what is the data of this segment, and how do I grow my service business around that segment? So that's one example of application in the service industry. And if that wasn't exactly hitting the type of service industry you're talking about, please ask another question. But like I said, I've seen 80-20 work across the globe on every continent except Antarctica, though I'm sure there's application there. And every business model, it applies. So sometimes we have to be creative and think of how. I will tell you, me and my colleagues have all probably worked with a similar business model and have some ideas and assumption, but we let your data guide us.
Please speak to the issue of 80-20 successes creating customer concentration, which itself decrements enterprise value.
Sure. So interesting comment. 80-20 successes in creating customer concentration. I will tell you, as far as enterprise value, I would argue that that's not true, because you still have a diversification in areas of concentration. And if you look at a company who practices 80-20, like ITW, IDEX, Marmon Group, Berkshire Hathaway, these companies, and you look at their earnings per share compared to their peers, Danaher or the other companies that do not practice it, you can see in the compound annual shareholder return, the enterprise value has grown disproportionately with those companies that practice it and don't. But yes, everything I spoke about today was creating focus and concentration. But again, it's there might be 5. I gave an example of one target, part of a conglomerate that had other areas of concentration too. So even if you have 5 or various portions of your either conglomerate or smaller business focused around, I would say the data doesn't tell us that it degrades enterprise value.
Okay, and last question, I believe. Where do you get the resources to assign to these opportunities?
Sure. So that's an easy one. That's a good question. No, where we get them is no quad 4. Remember, I showed you the quad, and I said if we eliminate the activity here that doesn't move the needle, there is overhead that's freed up. You then need to determine. We help you determine where that overhead comes from, and we remove it from the business, and then we reinvest some of that in these opportunities for growth. And even in the example that I gave with my client who had the two sectors, and one of them was in energy, we segmented that business and we said, okay, let's right size our overhead for the growth strategy of that business. And then that freed up some resources that we could say, okay, go win that aerospace target. So it's through knowing your data, removing the long tail that isn't helping, and the overhead, then that's where you get the investment opportunity.